I'm Trish.
And I'm Brandi.
And you're listening to episode 29 of
Connected Conversations. This is your space where international teachers, leaders, and families like us come together for real talk, practical insights, and tools to navigate life in international schools around the world.
Between us, Brandi and I have nearly 40 years of international teaching experience across multiple continents and more than a dozen countries.
That's right, which means we've navigated a lot of exciting parts of living abroad and a lot of the complicated ones too.
Sure. And one of those topics that comes up again and again when teachers are preparing to move us overseas is, what do I do about my pet?
Yes, because for many people, this is not a small decision. They are our fur babies. They are our family members.
Mm-hmm. So when you start researching what it takes to move a pet internationally, you quickly realize that it's not nearly as simple as booking an extra ticket on the flight you're on.
No, it's not. There are entire online forums filled with questions like, why does my dog need a blood test 6 months before flying? Or why did the airline just reject my crate at the airport? That happened to me.
Yeah. Or even posts from people saying that their pet couldn't enter the country because the paperwork wasn't completed in the exact right order.
Oh, so today we're kicking off an episode all about relocating pets internationally. And the realities people don't always realize when they start the process.
Yep. This topic actually comes from a lot of conversations we've had personally and that we've seen online.
And it's also something I've experienced personally. When I moved from Washington State to Prague in the Czech Republic, I brought my 2 cats, Luna and Sebastian, with me, which meant navigating microchips, rabies vaccinations, veterinary paperwork, airline policies, and timing everything correctly.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, it didn't all go correctly either.
Yeah. And on my side, I've had several friends move pets internationally, especially rescue animals they've adopted while living abroad. And what I've noticed every time was the amount of planning that was involved.
In many cases, people were preparing 6 months to a year before their move to make sure that all of the paperwork, the vet requirements lined up properly. And when you start digging into this topic, you'll quickly see why.
Yeah, countries have very different rules about animal imports. Airlines have specific regulations about how pets can travel. And sometimes there are waiting periods or quarantine requirements that people don't actually know about before they start researching.
So in today's episode, we're not going to break down every country's specific rules. That would be insane, and it would probably take an entire series.
Yeah. Instead, we're going to walk through the 4 big categories to plan when people move pets internationally.
If you're considering relocating pets abroad with a pet, or relocating with a pet abroad, or even you're just thinking about it, this episode will help you understand what the process actually involves before you get started.
Yep. And while you're listening, take a look at the many links and resources we've curated for you in the show notes. We're sure they're going to help you as you plan.
So are you ready? It's time to
get connected. The first consideration, and honestly, the one that trips most people up, is the legal requirements and all of the paperwork.
Every country has animal import regulations, and they can be incredibly specific.
One of the most common things that we see is people getting confused about like the microchip requirement specifically. Many countries require an ISO standard microchip. And if your pet already has a chip that isn't ISO compatible, you may have to implant a second one.
Yep. And that microchip becomes the official ID for your pet in the process. Every vaccine, blood test, and document gets tied to that chip number.
Yep. Another major rule that surprises people is the order of vaccinations. In many countries, especially across the European Union, the microchip must be implanted before the rabies vaccination is given.
If the rabies shot is done first and then the chip is added later, that vaccine doesn't count. And owners have to redo the vaccination and restart that whole waiting period.
Yeah, that's something we see mentioned on relocation boards all the time, that people realize that they have to restart their process and their timeline because the order wasn't correct.
For pets entering the European Union, the process generally includes a microchip, a rabies vaccine given after the chip is implanted, and an official veterinary health certificate issued, all within a certain amount of days before travel.
And the health certificate usually has to be endorsed by a government authority. You know, in the United States, that's typically the USDA. and it often must be completed within about 10 days of travel.
Okay, so breaking all of that down, this means that you need to check the microchip, plan the vaccinations, intentionally schedule your vet's bill of health, and then within 10 days, get that bill of health endorsed by the governing authority.
Yeah.
It's a very sequential and strategic set of steps to organize.
Then, of course, plan all of your other normal moving things between all of that. And maybe you're like leaving a country, so saying goodbye to people at the same time.
Oh my gosh, all in this tiny amount of time. Another thing that pops up constantly in online discussions is the rabies antibody test, sometimes called a teeter test.
Yeah, I think I've heard it. I don't know how to say it, but yeah.
I've seen it on paper.
Teeter?
Yes.
Yep.
Countries like Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and Australia, they all require this blood test to prove that the rabies vaccine is effective.
And the timing matters again here. Japan, for example, requires the blood test followed by a waiting period of up to 180 days before the pet can enter the country without extended quarantine.
Which means if someone accepts a job in Japan and they want to bring their dog or cat, they may need to start preparing half a year in advance. So that might be right away.
Yeah. Another rule that surprises people is that some countries just don't care about the animal. They care about where the animal has been living.
Ah, yes. Many countries maintain lists of approved or low-risk countries for rabies control.
Australia and New Zealand are probably the most well-known examples of this. If your pet isn't coming from an approved country, it may not be allowed to enter directly.
Oof, which means the animal might have to live temporarily in another country first, sometimes even for months, before entering that final destination.
And that reminds me of the quarantines that some countries still require. You know, animals need to spend time in a government quarantine facilities after arrival, maybe 1 day, 10 days, it varies, especially if paperwork or vaccination timelines don't meet their standards.
Oh, yes. I remember learning about this too. I wouldn't have chosen to move to the Czech Republic if they had a quarantine requirement, actually. I'm not sure if you actually knew that about
I didn't know that. What?
That was my deal breaker. And this is something that owners often discover late in the process too. Even if everything is done correctly, a short quarantine period might still be required. And then, to be honest, it could be a deal breaker for a future move for a lot of people.
Yeah. So did you come across like breed restrictions or what was that?
Definitely. Animals with snub noses were restricted to fly.
Like a pug or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. Because of their difficulty to breathe. And I was shocked to learn that.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I mean, it makes sense. Some countries also limit or prohibit the specific dog breeds coming in, particularly breeds that are sometimes categorized as aggressive under local law.
Oof, it's so crucial to learn those restrictions before even beginning the processes. Man, and then there's the documentation in and of itself. Every piece of paperwork, the vaccines, the tests, the microchip numbers, it all has to match up perfectly.
Yeah, and not in your home country, but where you're going.
Exactly.
That's the key. Okay.
Yes.
So even a small mismatch between a microchip number and a veterinary certificate can cause delays or refusal of entry.
Oh, and I can attest to that. Even the names on the papers need to match. My grandma was the final sender of my cats. They flew over without me. I was already in Czech Republic for a month. And because her last name was different from my last name, the Czech authorities almost withheld my cat from me because my little Luna kitty, she is a purebred, and they assumed that I was purchasing her from an international breeder.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that story either.
Yep.
Okay, so when people say moving pets internationally requires paperwork, they really mean it's a carefully timed chain of veterinary records, government documents, and legal requirements that all have to line up correctly.
If you're researching airline travel requirements, one of the most important organizations to know is the International Air Transport Association, or the IATA. Their live animal regulations are basically the rule book out here that airlines use for transporting pets safely.
Yeah, so if you're moving from the U.S., the USDA's pet travel website is also one of the clearest resources out there. It actually lists the requirements country by country, so you can see exactly what documents and vaccines are required.
If you're moving to Europe, the European Commission website has very, very clear section explaining the pet passport system and the entry requirements too. It walks you through things like microchips, the rabies vaccinations, and travel documentation.
So if you decide to work with a relocation company, the International Pet and Animal Transport Association, or IPATA or IPATA, I don't know, maybe, has a directory of vetted companies around the world that can help.
And don't worry, we've got your back here. All of these are linked below for you if you forget the acronym, for you to sift through and find the information that you need.
Yep. One important piece of advice here. Always verify the rules using government official websites. Okay. Some great starting points are the ones that we just mentioned.
Yes, because the regulations, they change regularly. And so it's always safest to rely on official sources rather than outdated blog posts or forum advice. And that's why this first consideration, the legal requirements and paperwork, is where the entire process has to begin.
Okay. The second major consideration people run into when relocating their pets internationally is transport and airline logistics.
This is often where people realize the process is a lot more structured than they expected.
Yeah, one of the most common questions we see on relocation boards is, can my pet fly in the cabin with me?
Sometimes they can.
It's really nice.
Yeah, but usually only if the animal is small enough to fit in an airline approved carrier under the seat in front of you. So most airlines, they have super strict weight limits, often somewhere between 7 to 9 kilograms, including the carrier. So translating that's for very small or medium-sized cats or very small dogs.
Not quite as small as she's doing that.
Sorry, not a kitten. Although that would work too.
Oh, can you imagine having a kitten? Meow, meow,
oh my
meow,
God.
the entire
I couldn't.
I would be like, give me that kitten. I need to hold that kitten. Sorry.
You're dangerous.
Sorry, I know. I need kittens in my life. Okay. Larger pets typically have to travel under the plane, either at like in the cargo hold, either labeled as cargo or excess baggage, right? Which can sound like alarming if you've never researched it before.
Okay, but fortunately for animals, airlines use temperature controlled and pressurized compartment underneath the airline, underneath the airplane that's designed specifically for live animal transport.
Yeah, still there are a lot of rules around this. One of the most common issues people report online is arriving at the airport and then having their crate rejected.
Oh, yeah. I know about it because that happened to me. That's because airlines follow the International Air Transport Association, or the IATA, the live animal regulations for crate standards.
Okay. And so the crate has to be large enough for the animal to stand up, not touch the top, fully turn around, and lie down comfortably.
Oh, and they have to have 4 spare inches beyond that movement, I learned.
Okay.
I prepped my crates way beforehand, and my Sebastian kitty got fatter every week that I was away. I swear.
Your grandma was just like, here we go.
Overfeeding him. I mean, to be honest, I bought my crates like 6 months before, so there was a long time for him to get fat. But when it came to fly, the airline actually rejected my crate.
Oh my God. So did you have to like go buy another one? Or,
Yep.
Well, grandma did, I guess, right?
Exactly. I was already in Czech Republic, but yep, my friend did. And we had to buy actually a medium-sized dog crate for him.
Ooh. And those crates have to be made of like specific materials. It's not just something you order online, Temu or something. You know, they have to have proper ventilation on multiple sides and be secured with the correct hardware.
That's right. Yep. And many airlines also require water dishes attached to the inside of the crate and absorbent material on the floor too.
Oh, okay. Like in case they have an accident, I assume, or something.
Yep.
Okay.
But I was really surprised to learn that for the long flight I had booked for my cats, it was required that pets have a layover for a certain period of time so the airport staff can actually walk your pet outside of the crate.
My gosh.
I was really nervous for my cats to be stuck in their crate for a 23-hour full journey. But it's really cool to know that they prioritize your animal's health and safety over your own convenience, which personally I really respected.
Did you practice walking your cat on a leash then?
No, I have no idea how they do it. I mean,
how
it's
did they do
mystery
that?
after
how
they go.
did they do that?
I don't know. I imagine great walking areas in an airport in my head.
Little cat race routes. It's really awesome. I joke, but it's awesome. People don't always expect that international pet journeys involves so many multiple stages. You know, if there isn't a direct flight between your origin and your destination, your pet may have to transit through another airport.
And depending on the route, animals sometimes need to stay in licensed transit kennels between flights. And in some cases, airline or airport staff may let them out during longer layovers like they did for my little kitties. It really depends on the airline, the airport, the route, and how the pet is being transported.
Yeah. And this is especially common when relocating between continents, as you were doing, for example, from North America to Southeast Asia, where flights may route through Europe or through the Middle East.
And it's one reason some people decide to work with professional pet relocation services that coordinate the flights, the paperwork, and all of the transit arrangements.
Yeah. Another common surprise people post about online is like seasonal flight restrictions. I didn't realize this so much, but some airlines won't actually transport animals in cargo during very hot or very cold months because of safety concerns around like ground handling.
Again, prioritizing the health and the safety.
Yeah,
this is, I think it's particularly relevant for routes through very hot climates, like for example, the Middle Eastern hubs during summer.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And speaking of environmental factors for pet travel, breed restrictions, like we said before, are another issue people run into. Certain brachiocephalus. Brandi gave me a word I can't pronounce, everyone. Okay. Certain flat-faced breeds, I don't know that scientific word that's on the screen, like bulldogs, pugs, or Persian cats, may be restricted by airlines because they can have breathing difficulties, as we said.
Woof. And let's talk about that for a moment, not about the word, but about the topic.
Thanks. My shame is still strong.
Okay, but there's a lot of confusion around the airline booking rules too. Can you imagine buying a ticket and just showing up with your pet at the airport? It's absolutely necessary to call the airline you're looking to book with and get all of the important information regarding how to book the travel for your fur babies.
Yeah, we know that our listeners, you are intelligent people and you are not those type of people doing that. But people do all the time.
True.
Yeah,
Yep.
Definitely. You need to reserve the animal's space on the aircraft in advance, well in advance. Flights often have limits on how many animals they can travel with, on a single plane. And like how many people can go with one person, like how many pets can go with one person, right? So when those spaces are filled, your pets may need to be booked on different flights.
Yes. And after working through the booking process, next is the airline check-in timing.
What? Like, what do you need to do with that? Like pets traveling in cargo? Like, what do they need to do?
Well, exactly. They often need to arrive several hours before the flight so the airline can complete the documentation checks and the safety inspections.
Wait, so the 2 hours right before isn't enough to just
Exactly.
Okay, I wouldn't have really thought that. I've never traveled with a pet. So Brandi's teaching me a lot in this episode here.
My fur babies, they went through this process 5 times before they were finally accepted and flew over to my new home in Prague.
Oh my gosh. So 4 times they went to the airport and they were sent back home?
Yep. And that process is thorough. So, 5 of the times my friend went to the airport, and the first time the name of the sender was myself. But as you know, my grandma was the sender in the long run. And so because those names were different, that caused a problem. The second time I needed the endorsement for health for my cats, and I didn't have that in time. Then the third time I needed a new bill of health, and that bill of health had a 1-day expiration, or I was expired 1 day out of that window. So that was another problem. And then, as I said, the crate was too small, and I had to buy another crate. And then finally, with the bill of health, the endorsement, the right size crate, and the names being protected, my cats were finally sent on the 5th try.
I'm really sorry for that. I don't know what to say. Okay. So when people think about moving pets internationally, the flight itself is only one part of the logistics. We've talked paperwork and now flights. Sometimes pets and their owners may not be on the exact same flight if the animal is traveling as manifest cargo.
Yes, that's how my cats were traveling. So there's a whole set of airline policies, safety standards, and travel coordination that have to be planned super carefully to make sure that the journey goes smoothly for the animal. But take it from me, it is possible.
Absolutely. The third consideration people run into, and one that catches many of them off guard, is the cost and long-term planning needed.
Oh, yeah. And when people first start researching the process online, one of the most common posts you'll see is someone saying, I had no idea it would cost this much.
Yeah, I've recently learned some of those numbers and I am agreed. I had no idea. Okay. And that's because like international pet relocation isn't just a single expense. It's not a flight ticket. It's a series of little costs that build up across the entire process.
It usually starts with veterinary appointments. Your pet may need updated vaccinations, microchipping, health exams, and sometimes specialized blood tests, depending on whatever your destination country is.
And some of those tests, especially rabies antibody tests required by countries like Japan, South Korea, Singapore, or Australia, they must be processed through approved laboratories, and this can all be fairly expensive.
Oh, yeah. Then there's the documentation process, like we were discussing before, where countries may require veterinary health certificates to be officially endorsed by government authorities.
In the United States, for example, that endorsement often comes from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and there are fees involved for processing and validating all of those documents.
But of course, airline travel is another major cost factor. Pets traveling as checked baggage or manifest cargo usually require additional airline fees, and those can vary significantly depending on the airline and your route.
So for larger animals traveling as cargo, those fees can sometimes reach several hundred or even over $1,000, depending on the distance and the airline policies.
And then there's the crate itself. Oh man, on international airlines, those approved crates that meet the International Air Transport Association standards can also be super expensive, especially for larger dogs or fatter cats like mine.
Or Sebastian. Or was it Luna? It was Sebastian. It was always Sebastian. He was a chubby puppy, even though he was a kitty. Okay. This is where some people decide to work with professional pet relocation companies.
These companies manage the entire process, the paperwork, the timelines, the veterinary requirements, airline bookings, and the transit arrangements.
Yeah. This convenience can be incredibly helpful for complex relocations. But the cost can range anywhere from about $3,000 to $6,000, and sometimes more depending on the route and the services required. And just be aware, this price that I just said is additional to the other prices we've already mentioned.
One organization people use when researching relocation companies is the International Pet and Animal Transportation Association, often called IPATA or IPTA? IPATA. Sorry, I was taking out that A. IPATA.
Yeah.
Which has a directory of vetted pet transport services around the world.
Another big factor people talk about online is the timeline of it all. International pet relocation often requires planning months, 6 months, maybe a year in advance.
That is so true. You were saying that some countries require waiting periods after vaccinations or blood tests before travel is even allowed. Speaking of that, Japan's 180-day waiting period after the rabies antibody test is a super well-known example.
Yeah. We've both seen situations where teachers accepted jobs quickly, like in the November or in the December, January hiring period. But it didn't line up with their start date, like their pet paperwork. So it means their pet had to travel later or stay temporarily with family or friends or even in boarding until all those requirements were completed.
And there are a few practical tips we see recommended repeatedly in expat groups that can make this process a lot smoother, though.
Yeah. One of those is creating a dedicated pet paperwork binder, or a digital folder where you're going to keep all the copies of every document, vaccination records, microchip information, blood test results, airline confirmations, the pet passport, and health certificates.
Ooh, I really wish I would have done this. It's a great tip because during this process, you'll often be asked to show all of those documents multiple times to veterinarians, the airlines, and sometimes the border officials too.
Yeah. Another helpful tip is crate training your pet well before the flight.
I did this one, though. One thing I did right. Many relocation specialists recommend introducing the travel crate weeks or even months in advance so the animal becomes comfortable sleeping and resting in it. Luna and Sebastian would choose to sleep in their crates with the doors open for weeks before they even traveled. I gave them lots of kitty candies inside there, and I let their scent get all over the towels that were going to be inside so they felt like home.
It was the kitty candies that did it, Brandi.
Of course it was.
The kitty candy. That can significantly reduce the stress during travel. because the crate becomes a familiar, safe space instead of something completely new that you're trying to shove them into on the day of the flight. And if any of you have whipped out a crate when it's time to take your pet to the vet without crate training at first, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And for all of those out there who have high stress babies, did you know that veterinarians also frequently mention that sedation is not recommended or even allowed anymore on pet or on flights for pets?
Yeah, it's true. Like sedatives can interfere with breathing and balance at altitude. So that's why they just don't let you do it anymore.
Yep. So when people are considering bringing pets abroad, it's important to think about what the financial investment and the long-term planning that's required is going to be involved.
Yep. Starting your research early, sometimes 6 months to a year in advance, can really make the entire process much more manageable and help avoid stressful surprises closer to your move. The fourth consideration, and one that's both practical and emotional, is animal welfare and lifestyle realities. Because even if all that paperwork and travel logistics work out perfectly for you, there's still going to be the question of how the pet move will actually affect the animal itself.
Long international journeys can be super stressful for pets. The flights may be hours long. There are unfamiliar environments, new sounds, and sometimes long travel days with multiple stages. And many owners worry about how their pet will handle that journey. That's why crate training is so highly recommended by veterinarians.
I crate train my child. Child? I'm just sitting there thinking traveling with a small child is a lot like this too. Like there's so much stress to that too.
That's true, actually.
No, like you travel with a small child now. Okay. So like seriously, in all seriousness, no, like let's circle back around to that quarantine part. I've never left my child in quarantine. I'll just let you know.
Thank God.
Okay. Oh gosh, in COVID, we were in quarantine. Okay. In some countries, pets may need to spend time in government-run quarantine facilities upon arrival if the documentation, like while they're waiting to go through documentation and vaccination timelines, what if they don't like meet up in the entry requirements? It can be found out at that stage, which is so challenging.
True. Yes, and those times can be anywhere from 7 to 30 days in quarantine. Even when all requirements are met, some countries still require short observation periods before pets are released to their owners.
Yeah, Japan, Australia, New Zealand are often mentioned as in these discussions because they seem to have particularly strict biosecurity rules.
Yeah, they do. Owners also have to prepare emotionally for the possibility that their pet may spend days or even weeks in quarantine before they can come home.
So some of you out there might be considering the age or health of your pet as well. You know, older animals or pets with medical conditions just may not tolerate that long distance travel as well as the younger animals. So the honest truth is that they may not be approved to even travel to your destination. So be aware of that.
Yeah. And that's why that full health evaluation before even committing to international travel plans is super important, as well as thinking carefully about whether the journey is even in your pet's best interest.
Yeah. We also want to encourage you to reflect on any lifestyle changes that can affect your pets once they arrive in a new country. For example, living in a dense urban apartment in a major international city may be different from living in a suburban home with a backyard.
This was an unexpected challenge for my Sebastian, the fat one, if you haven't caught on yet.
Chubby, Brandi, chubby.
He was an indoor kitty when I was in the States. And as he got older, I could see how sad he was that he could not go outside anymore in the European flat that I was living in. He would be glued to the windows all day long. And I felt so guilty. But lucky for him, the last 5 years of his life were in an apartment where we had a super big terrace. So he got that fresh air.
Yeah, that's a totally important thing to consider for your pets, their future lifestyle. Yeah. Some countries have have strict leash laws as well, dog registration requirements, or limits where the animals are not allowed in public spaces. Or like Czech, they are allowed everywhere.
Yeah, that's so true. And in some cities, finding pet-friendly housing can also take a lot of additional effort. Don't even get me started on this topic in the city of Prague.
This is still recovering, okay? Yeah, one thing many experienced expats recommend is researching veterinary services in your destination city before you move, making sure you know where local veterinary clinics are and whether they have English speaking staff. It's really important. And they can really make the transition much smoother for you.
Ultimately, bringing a pet abroad can absolutely work. And many families do it successfully every single year. But it's important to consider not only the logistics of the move, but also how the journey and the new environment will affect the animal itself.
Yeah. Having honest conversations with veterinarians, doing careful research, and planning ahead can help ensure that the move is safe and manageable for both you and your furry friend.
There's also a practical issue that sometimes people overlook in the excitement of planning a new move, and that's housing and daily life with your pets in the new country.
Yep. Not every rental property allows animals abroad, and this can vary a lot depending on the city and the region that you're moving to. You might even find breed restrictions, as we've mentioned, in specific apartment buildings or communities after you arrive.
Yes. And in some countries, pets must be officially registered with the local authorities and may even require an annual pet tax or a registration fee too.
That's true for dogs here in the Czech Republic. I
did not know.
So I always had my dog registered when I was here. So
wow.
Yeah, it's helpful to research things like that in your veterinary clinics where you're going. Emergency animal hospitals or even pet supply stores, they often have that information in the neighborhoods that you're going to be living or planning to look for a home in.
Yeah.
So these small details can really make a big difference when you're settling into a new country with your beautiful animal.
And fun fact, I did not do that when I moved to Czech Republic. And my first date with my now husband was him showing me to different pet stores and walking around the city with 20 pounds of cat litter in both of his arms. And it always helps to know a local.
Always helps. I love this. I can totally see that about him too. Okay. So that's how you knew he was the one, right, Brandi? Yeah. He carried your kitty litter for you.
That's what it took to win my heart.
That's what it took. And there's another perspective we really want to mention here as well. Not every international contract is long-term.
Oh, yes. Some teachers go abroad for a year or two, and then they decide that moving their pet for that short period isn't the best option.
Yeah. In those situations, many people arrange for their pets back home to stay with a trusted family member or friends back home. When my son and I moved to China in 2018, we knew that our large breed, mainly outdoor dog was not going to do well in the apartment living lifestyle that we were headed into. And plus, we weren't sure that we were going to like it. By the way, we loved it, but so we had a great friend with 2 small children who had a huge property here in the Czech Republic. And so they were like the second family, second stage of Rolfie's life. So it was really our best decision at the time. Great for them, great for us.
But you
for our dog.
You still managed to be involved with dogs in China, didn't you?
Yeah. Funny story. I don't know. They find us. Yeah, they do. We were 3 months into the contract in China and driving home on our motorbike one night. It was late. It was dark. And I took a road that I never had taken before, like parallel to the one I always was on. And my son from the back goes, "Mom, I think I saw something off to the side there. Like, go back and look." And I was like, "What?" We go back. Here is a box of 3 adorable little puppies. Adorable, like adorable. And of course, it's Christmas for my son, right? Yeah. So somebody had abandoned them on the side of the road. We fostered them for a few months and we found them great homes.
That's so sweet.
Not ours, thank God.
That's so sweet. You didn't have to move 3 dogs across continents.
I could not have. But the friends we gave, the one group took 2 of them, a good couple teaching friend of ours, and they did move them back to England, 2 of the puppies.
Wow.
Yeah, like 3 years later.
They were destined to be international.
They were.
You know, there's also other ways that you can still be around animals in your new country if the universe doesn't send you a box of cute puppies like they did Trisha.
May you be blessed with puppies.
Many cities around the world have local animal shelters and rescue organizations that rely heavily on volunteers and foster families. One of my close friends right now does this every weekend with hedgehogs in Prague.
That's a thing?
Yeah, totally.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah, our next contract after China was a boarding school in Chiang Mai, Thailand. And the school had a partnership with a local rescue called Hand to Paw. Shout out to Amandine and the fantastic work her group does with Thai temple dogs there. And I was working as a boarding parent at this school at the time. And the school was testing out the idea of having a support dog, an emotional support dog for the students. Cool. And So my son and I got to live with the beautiful Miss Petal for a year. It was a great adventure.
Oh, we're going to hear about Miss Petal in our next episode.
Next episode, we're going to meet her new mom.
Oh, she's such a gorgeous little pup. Actually, we'll be meeting her with Marianne. We're really hoping that you listen to that interview.
Yeah.
It's a fun one.
Yeah.
Now Petal lives in Oman, with her forever mom, and she's going to be our guest.
Next episode. Okay. So can't wait for all of the practical tips that Marianne is going to share with us as a pet expert who has moved so many pets abroad herself and helping other people do it too.
Okay. And all of this is to say, like Trish did, fostering animals, even temporarily, can be a wonderful way to support local rescue efforts and spend time with animals while you're living abroad.
Yeah. It also gives you the flexibility to help animals in need without committing to relocating a pet internationally during a shorter contract.
And we've seen a lot of international teachers get involved with rescue groups in their host countries, walking dogs, fostering animals, or helping shelters connect with adoptive families.
Or helping hedgehogs, as I just learned. So it's a thing. Okay. So whether you decide to bring your pet with you or not, there are still meaningful ways to be part of the animal community wherever you're living.
Okay. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We know how busy you are in these days and this time. So we truly appreciate that you have chosen to listen in.
Yeah. If you're thinking about relocating with a pet or even just beginning to explore the idea, we hope today's episode helped give you a clearer picture of the planning, timelines, and all the considerations involved.
Take it from someone who has done it. Moving pets internationally is absolutely possible. But as we've talked about today, it takes research, preparation, and often a bit more time and money than people expect.
A bit more money.
Just a little bit.
A lot in my book. If you want to go deeper with these tips, resources, and ideas that we've discussed today, head over to our website at connectedglobal.org. And there we're building practical resources to support international educators, leaders, and families like you.
There you'll find downloads, guides, checklists, and lots of extra tools connected to the topics that we discuss in our podcast, including links to some of the pet travel resources we mentioned in this episode.
Yeah. On our website, you can also book a consultation with us where we can extend what we've covered in this topic, in this episode, whether you're thinking about relocating internationally, navigating a school transition, or planning your next move abroad.
If you're looking for ongoing support, sign up for our newsletter for quarterly insights into international education as well. We include resources, upcoming episodes, and behind-the-scenes lessons we're learning from schools and educators around the world.
So we would love to also hear from you. Have you moved abroad with a pet? Are you in the middle of figuring that out right now? Leave a comment or send us a message with your experiences, your questions, or topics you'd like us to explore in future episodes.
Finally, the best way for this community to grow is for people like you to like and subscribe. So please share this episode with a colleague, leave a review. It helps more international educators and families find the show and join our conversation.
Yeah. So until next time,
may your journeys be full of adventure.
Your furry friends be either at your side or waiting at home to hear all about it.
And your decisions be well-informed and international. I'm such a cool guy.
Get that on video, Brandi.
The frizzies are out of control. Look at that. And it's here too.
What'd you touch?
18 seconds. See? 23 seconds. 20 seconds.
Oh.
We can.
Okay.
Picture first.
Because, how long have I wanted to do this episode? And how much am I learning alone in this episode?
You're learning while we're recording. You're like, really?
Wow.
Oh, I love that ending. I didn't read it before. Bye-bye.